The lines between good and bad aren't always clear. There are bad guys that do good things, and there are good guys that do bad things. Standards for what is good and bad is set by one's own moral compass. There are people who believe that certain crimes are justified if it's for the greater good. Others believe that the law is to be upheld as an absolute. Does killing a killer make you a hero? Or does crossing that line just because they did make it justified? Your answer, it's gonna vary depending on what your morals are. Kite Man represents this idea. He may be a guy who robs banks or steals shit, but when it comes down to it, he does the right thing.
Something, something changing your mind. Something.
Kite Man started out as a lowly minion working for big league villains like the Riddler and the Joker. But through all of his work and every line that he crossed, he never lost sight of why he was doing it. The man named Chuck that would soon become Kite Man did not commit crime because he wanted to, but because he felt it was the right thing to do. Chuck did everything he did without anything but love for his family. He struggled to keep his own head above water, but when he now had a wife and son thrown into the mix, he couldn't allow them to live in poverty. Chuck wanted his family to have a good life. He resorted to the only thing he could think of to make the money that he needed. Chuck went to work as a common henchman for supervillains. With Gotham's crime-ridden streets, he could easily find work. He'd have the money to ensure that his family could be alright. He upheld his morals the entire way through. He might have been doing some bad things, but he was doing it for a reason he viewed as just. Even when his wife divorced him and took the kid from him, he continued doing his work so he could pay child support and do whatever it took to take care of his child. He was left completely alone by his family, but he continued to do the right thing anyway. When Batman came looking for the Joker and the Riddler during the war between the two, Emmy went to Chuck knowing that Emmy worked for both. He knew how many people could get hurt, and he did the right thing and told Batman how to find the two. When they found out Chuck sold them out, they planned a little surprise for him. Chuck was out one day with his son for the first time in forever. He had gotten him a brand new kite. They sat there together flying it while they both enjoyed their time together. Chuck asked his son if he liked it. His kid told him, "Hell yeah." In one of Chuck's most regretted moments, he scolded his son for speaking like that. He said if he continued to use foul language, he'd end up going to the very place he was talking about. Other than that one tiny moment, the day had been amazing. Chuck had never been happier. He returned home and continued it as usual, until he got the news. Chuck rushed out of the hospital and he found his son's room. He sat beside his son, knowing that he was on his deathbed. He had been fatally and incurably poisoned by Chuck's kite. The Riddler and the Joker got their revenge on Chuck after all. In his son's final moments, Emmy asked his dad if this is what he had earned for saying hell. He asked if he was gonna go there now. Before Chuck could even process what his son had said, he flatlined. Chuck stood over his son's now dead body with the understanding that his morals had not only brought upon his death, but the worst fear in his final moments. If Chuck hadn't ratted out the two supervillains to Batman, his son would still be alive. If he had just lied or ran, maybe he would still be alive and with him right now. Even worse, if he hadn't scolded his son for saying hell, perhaps he could have at least passed in peace. It was Chuck that caused him to die in fear of forever being imprisoned in hell. If he had just set aside his morals, maybe everything would still be alright. It was all his fault. Chuck could have easily given up. He could have done a number of terrible things. He could have thrown in the towel and resigned from his life. But he didn't see that as an option. He didn't let go of his morals, but he adjusted. He remembered the kite that killed his son and the words that caused him so much pain in his final moments. And he embraced them. He became Kite Man. He developed kite-themed gadgets and weapons, and even adopted the catchphrase, "Kite Man. Hell yeah." He hunted down the villains and got his revenge. But he still refused to kill them. He remembered the great pain they had brought him, and what they did to his child. But he didn't kill them. He didn't do it. He wouldn't do it. He understood that crossing that line, just because they didn't make it the right thing to do. He may have adjusted his morals, but it doesn't mean he completely let go of them. Chuck walked away. But the world wasn't done with him. After seeing his impressive skills, he was attempted to be recruited for a supervillain team. He refused. Amy understood the things he'd have to do for him, and he wouldn't do it. He was beaten, battered, and completely broken up by the villains. He was given one last chance. He was asked if he'd die to keep his apathetic morals. Chuck looked up, with his whole life flashing before his eyes. He managed to say, "Hell yeah." And those were his last words.